Don't you want to know what happened to my neck?
You heard it. Now go to your cubicle.
1987 felt like a TV gold rush. Networks were flush with confidence after mid-80s mega hits, cable was nipping at the edges, and executives were convinced they could bottle lightning by mixing high-concept premises with familiar faces. On paper, it looked unbeatable. Spin-offs from beloved juggernauts, glossy period pieces, comic book meta ideas ahead of their time, and a handful of light, quirky comedies designed to catch family audiences between tentpoles. But then the season premiered, and a surprising number of these big swings hit the dirt almost instantly. Time slots turned out to be landmines, audience expectations didn't match the pitch, and a few shows simply weren't ready for prime time. In this video, we're unpacking 10 of the biggest TV flops of 1987, and asking the most important question, what went wrong? For each one, we'll break down the hook that sold it, the execution that struggled, and the outside forces like brutal competition and whiplash scheduling that helped seal their fate. Along the way, you'll see a pattern: hype without a handhold, brand names without the heart of the original, and cool ideas that never figured out how to become great television week after week. Ready to revisit the year networks learned that flashy isn't the same as sticky? Let's start with a show that tried to be self-aware long before audiences wanted that from a sitcom. Before we do that though, please hit the like and subscribe button to help this channel grow. 10. Once a Hero. Meta TV is everywhere now. Superheroes exhausted by their canon, characters who know they're in a story, comic panels come to life. In 1987, that was a risky, unfamiliar flavor. Once a Hero imagined a washed-up comic book protagonist who crosses into our world, where he's not special, not super, and definitely not panel perfect. The hook is clever. Fish out of water meets commentary on pop culture, but the weekly experience felt awkward. The tone wobbled between satire and sincere family comedy. The production design couldn't consistently sell the comic book aesthetics on a network budget, and the emotional spine, what does a hero do when no one needs a hero, didn't anchor the jokes. The bigger problem, ABC promoted the premise more than the people. Audiences will follow a character. They won't tune in just for an idea. The pilot needed a joyful, undeniable, oh, I get it moment to make viewers fall in love. Instead, curiosity turned into confusion by Act 2. Add a soft time slot and quick cancellations around it, and the sampling never stabilized. In another era, single camera, higher budgets, superhero awareness, this might have built a cult following. In 1987, it was a curiosity that never clicked. 9. The Tortellis. A Cheers spin-off in 1987 sounded like a slam dunk. Nick and Loretta Tortelli were loud, colorful breakouts on the mothership, and NBC hoped lightning would strike twice by relocating them to Vegas for their own domestic farce. The issue wasn't effort, it was essence. Cheers worked because it married sharp barroom wit with a found family warmth. The Tortellis leaned harder into broad caricature, turning Nick's lovable sleaze into a weekly engine. In small doses, that silliness popped. As a main course, it wore out its welcome fast. Audience carryover. The lifeblood of any spin-off fizzled because the new show didn't offer what Cheers fans loved, that balance of snark and sincerity. The tone skewed brash, the heart arrived late, and jokes landed without the grounding that made the original sing. Scheduling didn't help. NBC shuffles dilute sampling, but even a perfect slot can't fix a fundamental mismatch between characters and format. The lesson here is evergreen. Taking breakout side characters and putting them center stage isn't enough. The world and rhythm around them must be equally irresistible. The Tortellis had a brand name and decent promotion, but no barstool magic. The audience shrugged and moved on. 8. The Charmings. Fairy tale fish out of water. Irresistible pitch. Snow White, Prince Charming, and the kids wake up in 1980s suburbia, complete with mortgage payments, PTA pandemonium, and a poisoned apple's worth of culture shock. The pilot delivered some cute gags, medieval etiquette versus microwave dinners, but the series quickly hit a structural snag, novelty fatigue. Once you've made 3 magic versus modern convenience jokes, the 4th needs sharper invention or deeper character work to feel fresh. The bigger killer was scheduling. ABC bounced the show and eventually parked it against Thursday Titans. Competing with Cosby-anchored dominance is like sword fighting a tank. Without the time to refine dynamics, say letting Snow become the heart of a community or exploring how Charming adapts as a 9-to-5 dad, the show lived and died on premise. Sitcoms thrive on relationships that grow funnier and richer with time. The Charmings never earned that runway. In hindsight, the concept might have worked as a limited series or a modern single camera with a more grounded story engine. In 1987's multicam studio audience landscape, it was a sugary treat that melted when primetime heat hit. 7. Rags to Riches. If you loved show tunes and nostalgia, Rags to Riches looked like a dream. A high-energy 60s set musical dramedy about a cold tycoon who adopts 6 girls and reluctantly finds a family. It had heart, choreography, needle drops, and episodic lesson-learned arcs. So why didn't it stick? First, the musical format on weekly network TV is a high-wire act. Numbers need time, budget, and emotional logic to feel earned, not tacked on. When it worked, the show soared. When it didn't, songs felt like interruptions rather than catharsis. Second, scheduling pulled the rug. After an initial spark, a move to tougher nights drained casual viewers, the ones most susceptible to missing a week and never returning. The period setting also split the audience, too sweet for teens chasing edgier late 80s thrills, not trusty enough for adults who preferred traditional family comedies with fewer production swings. Rags to Riches wasn't a bad show. It was a niche show chasing a mass audience. In a streaming world, it might be a cult hit. In 1987, it was an ambitious experiment that couldn't reconcile Broadway dreams with Nielsen realities. 6. New Monkees. Revivals are tricky. You need to capture the original spirit without feeling like karaoke. New Monkees took the blueprint, 4 goofball musicians in sketch comedy musical chaos, and tried to reboot it for the MTV generation with fresh faces and shiny production. The immediate friction: fans of the Monkees weren't craving a replacement band, they were craving the band. Nostalgia favors authenticity, and authenticity is hard to fake with brand new personalities wearing old costumes. Syndication can be a blessing. Lots of local slots or a curse if your time varies wildly and viewers can't find you. The latter happened here. Without a tentpole lead-in or a consistent night, it became disposable background TV in a cluttered after-school matrix. The music itself wasn't sticky enough to create radio spillover, and the comedy didn't carve out a distinct identity. Where the original felt anarchic and surprisingly subversive for its era, the reboot felt manufactured. The verdict from audiences: thanks, but no thanks. It's a textbook example of revival math gone wrong, recognition without resonance, and a reminder that you can't shortcut chemistry. 5. Private Eye. From the creator of Miami Vice, set in 1950s Los Angeles, drenched in neon noir attitude, Private Eye should have been catnip. Stylish cars, fedoras, smoky nightclubs, and a rockabilly-tinged soundtrack set the mood. But style is seasoning, not the meal. The weekly mysteries rarely rose above serviceable, and the character dynamics didn't deepen fast enough to make appointment viewing. The lead duo had sparks, but the show didn't sharpen a why watch this detective story over a dozen others edge. Another hurdle was expectations. With the Vice pedigree, audiences anticipated operatic plotting and emotional thunder. When they got pretty good network detective hour, it felt like a letdown rather than a solid B. Add in Friday placement and frequent network tinkering, deadly for a newcomer trying to build habits, and sampling bled away. In a vacuum, Private Eye isn't a disaster. It's a handsome curio that never kicked into must-see gear. Viewers admired the vibe, then forgot to tune in next week. In television, that gap between admire and need is fatal. 4. Roomies. Roomies had a classic odd couple hook with a tabloid twist. A teenage prodigy starts college and shares a dorm room with a gruff, middle-aged Marine going back to school. There's comedic contrast baked into every scene. Curfew versus chow time, term papers versus training exercises, genius brain versus life experience. On paper, you can imagine heartfelt "we both have growing up to do" episodes. In practice, the tone lurched between family-friendly antics and sitcom shtick so broad the characters felt like setups for punchlines. Casting didn't help. The teen lead was a rising name, but young star vehicles need scripts that support them with finely tuned ensembles. Instead, Roomies often leaned on the premise to deliver laughs, not the relationships. Scheduling did it no favors: short orders, quick burns, and audiences never got the chance to invest in the pair's evolution from awkward cohabitants to genuine friends. The takeaway: contrast alone isn't a story engine. You need a weekly heartbeat, shared goals, escalating personal stakes, a community that becomes part of the joke. Without that, Roomies was a curiosity whose charm couldn't overcome its half-baked design. 3. The Popcorn Kid. There's a version of the Popcorn Kid that becomes a cult classic. Set in a movie theater with a dreamer lead and an MTM pedigree, it had the DNA of a workplace gem, a quirky ensemble, a distinct setting with endless gag potential, and a built-in love letter to cinema. Unfortunately, the show never got the runway to mature into its best self. Early episodes were amiable but slight. More isn't the theater cute? Then these people are a family you must hang out with weekly. Critics were kinder than audiences, which is often code for good bones, inconsistent laughs. The character dynamics needed a few more drafts to sharpen archetypes into people, and the jokes leaned gentle at a time when viewers were gravitating to bigger, bolder comedic identities. Then there's the schedule squeeze. Limited episodes scattered across a short window is a recipe for instant obscurity. The Popcorn Kid had vibe and heart, but TV is a habit business. If you can't get viewers to make you a habit by week 3, the odds plummet. The projector flickered. The audience didn't stay. 2. I Married Dora. I Married Dora is remembered less for its run and more for its audacious exit. The premise: an employer marries his housekeeper in a sham arrangement to prevent deportation that gradually inches toward real feelings, was always going to be a tonal tightrope. Played too light, it feels flippant about immigration. Played too heavy, the premise creaks under melodrama. The result landed awkwardly in the middle, with sitcom rhythms that often undercut the sincerity the story needed to earn. Still, there were flashes of charm, especially as the leads settled in. But ratings never stabilized, and ABC pulled the plug mid-season. The finale became legend when the actors broke the fourth wall to announce, "Our series is canceled," exiting the set as crew waved goodbye. It was bold, bittersweet, and genuinely funny, a moment that suggested the show might have been better as a sharper, more self-aware comedy from the start. Ultimately, Dora's fate underscores a common 1987 theme. Concept alone can't carry a series. Without a confident tone and a clear weekly hook, audiences sample, smile, and slip away. 1. The Law and Harry McGraw. Jerry Orbach's rumpled private eye, introduced on Murder, She Wrote, had presence to spare. Wisecracks, trench coat, a bulldog's tenacity. Spinning him off felt logical. What the series didn't crack was the alchemy of tone and audience. Murder, She Wrote fans loved cozy puzzles with Cabot Cove comforts. Harry McGraw's world was grimier, faster, and less tea-time friendly. A different brand of mystery demands different viewers, and the handoff didn't happen at scale. Narratively, the cases were fine, but fine isn't enough in week 1 of a new hour-long. New shows need undeniable character arcs or jaw-dropping hooks to make casual viewers circle the next episode. Harry mostly delivered competent casework plus banter, a treat for detective diehards, not a magnet for the masses. And while Orbach is a star vehicles still require a world you can't wait to revisit. With soft ratings, CBS cut its losses, and the character drifted back into guest spots before Orbach found his long-term home on Law and Order. The lesson: spin-off stardom works best when the audience can follow the same feeling, not just the same face. Conclusion: looking back, the flops of 1987 share a few clear pitfalls. First, premise first, development dominated. Cool ideas, comic heroes in reality, fairy tale families in suburbia, a musical every week grabbed attention, but the craft of turning those ideas into reliable story engines lagged behind. Second, scheduling whiplash and killer competition punished anything that needed time to find itself. When you're opposite a juggernaut, even a decent show can look like a dud. Third, brand math failed. Spin-offs and revivals treated recognition like a guarantee instead of a starting point. Audiences wanted the feeling of the original, not just the label. But there's a silver lining. Many of these attempts forecast where TV would eventually go. Meta-storytelling, period stylization, workplace hangouts in distinctive settings. They were early, messy prototypes. In a later era with flexible episode orders, niche audiences, and room to tinker, several might have been minor hits. 1987 taught networks a hard truth. Hype is a spark, not a flame. Without characters we love, worlds we crave, and a time slot that lets habit form, great ideas burn out fast. And that's why these flops, though short-lived, still matter. They're cautionary tales that help the next generation get it right.